When the Canucks went through a stretch of just 4 wins in 21 games and fell out of a playoff spot, it was easy. The team and fans would say, trade Miller, Pettersson, who cares? We're not winning anyway, even with them. But now that they've won 3 straight and they're back in a playoff spot, has winning simplified or complicated a Canucks trade, Craig?
Oh, Gino, if winning could cure all ills, wouldn't life be a bowl of cherries? And yeah, it is nice for the Vancouver Canucks to have won 3 in a row, but you can't just look at just a short-term stretch. And despite the fact that they've won all 3 games, this team still, in Jim Rutherford's words, is not a contender. He wants to put them back into a contending spot, not contending for a playoff spot. So, yeah, you would think that maybe a little bit of the pressure to have to make a deal goes away. But there's a saying, Gino, the problems that go away by themselves come back by themselves. And Jim Rutherford was very candid in his interview with the Globe and Mail, talking about, with respect to, we've identified the issue. We don't think that it can carry forth the way it is. Whatever the timing is on that, everybody's tried to work at it. But the bottom line is that it probably just makes everybody feel good about coming to the rink and playing the game. And everybody's going to, I really believe, Gino, that most players, vast majority, all players, why am I even saying anything, are going to get on the ice and play to win. And I think that that's no different for the Vancouver Canucks. But the fact of the matter is that they got a problem they got to deal with, and a problem that they've openly defined and identified.
All right, when Jimmy Rutherford said what he said publicly, though, other GMs around the league could easily say, great, we can lowball the Canucks into making a bad deal because they're desperate. But now that they're winning, does this put Vancouver back in a position of strength to make a better deal?
Gino, let me just give you a little insight into what other GMs offer another GM in a trade. They're always lowballing. They're always lowballing. I don't care if you've won 25 in a row. If you're trying to make a trade, nobody wants to give up more. They're always trying to give up less. So, and Jim Rutherford understands that completely and thoroughly. I mean, his experience speaks to that. But what the Vancouver Canucks have to do, and I'm going to go right back to Jim's words, he wants to put them back into a contending spot for the Stanley Cup, which leads to making sure that Quinn Hughes is a Canuck forever. So that's where his focus has to be. When Jim recognizes, along with Patrick Allvin, that there's a trade that makes sense, that moves them forward, then he will do that. But Jim also mentioned, too, that it might not be one trade that puts them back in contending spot. They might have a hole in making a trade, and then they're going to have to look at fixing that hole as they move on. I don't think this is as easy as just snap your fingers, make one trade, and they're back to contending spot. That's where you're looking at trying to make a deal that is going to move your team forward to a certain extent, and more importantly, resolve the problem. That's what they're trying to do here now. They're trying to resolve the problem that has existed, that people were speculating on long before Jim Rutherford came out, and now everybody knows that the problem is there.
For some, the thought of moving Miller or Pettersson would mean the Canucks are writing off the season and looking to the future. But do you think the Canucks could actually make a deal that could improve their team and give them a better chance to win this year?
Well, I think you have to ask yourself, win what? Win a playoff spot, win a playoff round? I don't think they're a Stanley Cup contender. I don't think they're close to being a Stanley Cup contender. So I think if you're looking at making a trade with the idea that you're going to put yourself in Stanley Cup contending place, is not there. Because the players you're going to get in return, in my view, are not going to be players that are going to come in and immediately help your team as a Stanley Cup contender. Because as Jim Rutherford said, and everybody knows, J.T. Miller and Elias Pettersson are their best 2 forwards.
All right, Miller or Pettersson, who do you think can bring the most in return in a trade?
Yeah, I think it's complicated, Gino, and I'll answer this as quickly as I can. Miller has a full no-move clause, and you got Elias Pettersson underperforming. You would think that Elias Pettersson would bring more and probably more players just because of the salary, trying to balance things out. So that would be my answer on this day.
Oh, how quickly things can change, Craig. A week ago, the Canucks were out of a playoff spot. Now, they're just a win out of 3rd in the division.